So for you, you published your first book, The Pain of a Warrior.
Yeah.
I was, because I didn't get a chance to look at it beforehand. But I was looking through it, and one line stuck to me because my dad used to say stuff like that to me. Well, I say like he's no longer around. My dad still says, but like. It's about we forget our ancestors, we forget ourselves.
Yeah.
And that, we'll get into first, like, when did you write the book? But I just wanted to touch on that because that, it's like if you study your history, you'll understand yourself. Like that's another saying kind of similar to.
Yeah, and that's like I said, there's just so many layers to it. That phrase came to me. So when we were doing that Mayan puppet show, we were doing, it's called the Popol Vuh with El Teatro Campesino.
What does that mean?
And so the Popol Vuh, it's the creation story, right? It's a series of creation all the way to the destruction and then rebirth again. And so the Popol Vuh is the beginning creations, and then what you have is called Seven Macaw after, and then what you have next is called the Magic Twins.
Oh, okay.
And like I said, there's a lot of layers to it. But that phrase that you're talking about, it came to me in one of their ending comments of the show, right? I was hearing it, and I've heard it multiple times working the show and then being in the show. And it was just, it was like, it really spoke to me. It's like, well, what are they trying to say, right? It wouldn't leave until when I came up with that phrase. It's like, if I forget my ancestors, I forget myself. You forget who you truly are, and that's what I've been able to do with my book, with these writings, right? Inspired by these old writings, I've been able to look at them, see them in a different light, and then be inspired by them. Someone asked me, is it a retranslation? I go, no. I go, these are inspired by. I read these 500, 600-year-old writings, and being, what's the word I'm looking for? Being interpreted, right, into Spanish, and then by the Western academics, it loses validity, right? And they put so much on it. I go, no.
Just translating something from English to Spanish, Spanish to English.
There's a lot there. And so that's kind of what it was, right? And I was like, what is it? I look at this body, what is it really trying to say, right? And like I said, a lot of my writing comes out is about being one with the land, being in touch with your ancestors, no matter what culture you're from. Relying in the land to heal you, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, right? It's being in touch, having unity within the community, right? And so a lot of my stuff is positive like that. And then, it does touch on death and answering the question, who am I? Who is anyone ever going to remember me, right? What I see in those indigenous writings is they're always looking at how can we live forever, so to speak. That's something that comes up, and you see that across all cultures, right? It's how can we live forever? How can we be remembered?
Yeah,
right?
What comes after death? Like we're gonna live forever after death.
It's what we do in this world now, in the community, right? The more good we do, and there are some fools that, do some negative stuff and get remembered, but it's still on the community, right? We hold up. They hold up who they want to hold up. Right. So all I can do now is just, like I said, working with this, having this body of work. Eventually, it will be a tool for me, right? To have this body of work and be able to present it to kids, be able to present it, in the schools or with the academics. Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm geared and or going, to, right? Working in the juvenile hall, working.
Oh, you are doing that?
Yeah, I worked at the Boys Ranch.
Okay.
And I was also there as a, as a teenager, but it's all good.
Yeah.
But being able to go back to places like that and help out, right? And give some understanding. Working in group homes with kids who have ailments or disabilities. I've done a lot of different nonprofits, right? Just trying to find my way. Where do I fit in at? Where can I do the most, right? The best for the community.
It all comes out to where you can help.
Yeah, and I feel that with these writings and this positive writings and this body of work and the bodies of work to come, that's where I feel I can do the best, right? Like I said, use it as a tool. I'm still gaining momentum, right? I've had a lot of positive feedback on it, messages, messages and calls, right, talking about the book and stuff like that, and wanting explanations. And yeah, I would just love to just be able to share it with,
And that's really cool that you mentioned, like, you're studying stuff from 500 years ago about our indigenous culture, because much like, I feel like, when you look at reservations now. Sorry for that sound. I don't know what's going on.
That's kind of piercing in the earphones.
Yeah,
right
is it?
We'll edit it out. No.
That's kind of hard to edit out.
When you don't have a connection to who your ancestors are and where you come from, it's like a common thing in all cultures. All cultures. Yeah. Whoever loses their history, like, they're kind of lost in a way, and it's not just because you're poor. It's a lot of other stuff on top.
Oh yeah, like I said, there's a lot of layers.
Like with the African American community that were brought here and they don't know.
What tribe they're from,
right.
Culture and things
we
like
know
that.
roughly what area we're from, the west side, but like there's so many different, communities and tribes and nations over there. It's high near impossible to tell what
your ancestors were doing. Were they fishing? Were they herding?
Yeah.
Or just
my master, he put it like this. He always like that trauma in the community. It's like someone drowning, right? When you don't have a stable foundation, something to hold on to, you're gonna grab for whatever's there, whether gangs, drugs, negativity, right? And that's what's hard about learning about our cultures, that we're not introduced to these things until we get older, right? We get indoctrinated with these beliefs, right? When I first heard about indigenous people, it was sacrificing people and eating hearts. And even most of that is I wouldn't say embellished? It's embellished, Not to say it didn't happen, but still, you had things like that going on across the whole world at time. You know what I'm saying? There was things like that everywhere, from every culture, right? Yeah. But like I said, to have that positivity growing up, it wasn't. I didn't learn about my culture and learn about where my mother's from and the indigenous side until later on in life, But when experienced all the hardships like everyone else, right? Because you didn't know. You just know what's in front of you. Yeah. And the same thing with African American culture, right? You don't learn a lot of things, and even positive things, until later on in life, right?
Like you don't learn much like Black history until you get to college. Like the three people you learn about Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and then Malcolm X. And then when you take Black Studies classes in college, you start learning more about
Marcus Garvey,
Frederick Douglass, and things like that. Ida Wells Barnett. And it's crazy. W.B. Du Bois, and then Angela Davis, and like all these other people who was helping through the civil rights movement, which is kind of funny because it's like you only heard about those three people. Like, how did this whole movement happen? Because there was a lot more people who was helping out during this kind of time. Huge groups.
Just with my buddy, the filmmaker that I introduced you to earlier, Jesus Cruz. We're talking about, and he caught me on something that we were talking about Chicano culture, and the gang part's always the one that gets talked about the most. He did this film about a Chicano culture thing about collecting oldies, and I kind of felt bad when he mentioned it when we were having lunch, that like I sort of touched on the North and South thing, but it's like, if you look at like the Chicano movement, like, yes, the gang part is something that like the media talks about the most, but it's bigger than that. It's
for me, it's hard because, that's why I'm glad, like, my good friend Robert Ellison, that I have someone to ask, still a mentor, and when we talk about culture and when we talk about history, right, what is relevant culture, right? Like you said, like the gang thing, right? That I've heard that brought up, and it's still relatively new. You know what I'm saying? It's some people consider the Zoot Suits a gang to a degree, but people don't understand that a lot of those things came about to protect the neighborhood from the authorities, right? And they did grow into something else and change, but still it started off in a positive way
to protect against the sailors that were attacking
and other people, right? And that's just the way life is. People are going to get along and people are not, but that's how a lot of that stuff started, right? And a lot of the communities, that's what it was. It was just about protecting protecting the community, and then it turns into something else, you know. But it bugs me like when they say that's part of the culture, because to me, I don't see it as part of the culture. It's you know, but like I said, everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah, and that's what the first thing that they throw. Like
yeah.
You said,
I understand.
Like you said that's the like we talk about Aztecs, like the sacrifices.
Sacrifice.
when like in even in the Bible they talk about it. That's what they were doing over there. Like in other places, like everyone did that. Like,
So it's like I said, I think slightly different, right, against the grain, and it's hard for me to have discussions with certain people, right, but I still entertain, I try not to shut people out, I always like to get the different ideas and get the different opinions, and I always say, like, you can get 5 hazy truths, and when you can overlap them, you know what I'm saying, you can get a degree of truth out of it. That's all I can do is just use my best judgment with education, with the community, with people I meet. It's there's a lot of work to be done.
Can you believe the Voice Party has had merch this whole time and we neglected to tell anybody? T-shirts, hoodies, bath mats, wall clocks, throw pillows, even mini skirts. We will throw our logo on absolutely anything. Click the link in the description below and pick you up some Voice Party merch today.